Since the re-release of Doom back in May of 2016, there's been an increasing interest in first-person shooters that aim to recreate the experience of the classics. Games like Toxic, which was released in September of the same year, have attempted to get the shooter genre back to its roots, as a reaction to the honest ridiculousness of many modern shooters. In today's review, we're going to be taking a look at a game that has a similar goal, Gorescript, which releases today, June 15th. Gorescript is a voxel-based Twitch shooter that's heavily influenced by the FPS classics like Doom and Quake, with fast-paced action, 2.5D graphics, and a standard set of weapons that aim to be as basic as possible. In this game, you run around picking up ammo and upgrading your character through power-ups, which are found by stumbling upon secret areas hidden in walls. The goal of this game is to fight your way past slow-moving knobs and eyes that try to pick you off from a distance, while coming across the occasional Hydra or boss until you can find your red and blue keys that will unlock your way to the end of the level. Your score and time are recorded and updated on a leaderboard so that you can compete with other people to get the best score on that level. While there's no story, the general idea is that you've been somehow trapped on a spaceship with a bunch of aliens and you need to escape by fighting your way to an escape rocket. So, is it any good? The first thing that I want to go over is the weapons. Instead of opening up the game to a plethora of guns that basically do the same thing, Gorescript limits itself to only 6 weapons, with each one having a specific purpose. When you start out, you'll be equipped with a sledgehammer and a shield, which you can use to melee and block enemies, although it's a little weak. After that, you'll unlock the shotgun, which is what I consider the base gun of the game. It's not very strong, taking out eyes in 1 hits and noms in 3 to 4, but it'll get the job done for cheap. Next up is the Hyper Blaster, which is a submachine gun that can consistently hit enemies from far away. Its only benefit over the shotgun is range, but it's not really great overall. Eventually you'll come across a rocket launcher, which is one of the best weapons in the game. It will easily one-hit basic enemies as long as they're close enough to the impact, and is really good at taking out groups of enemies in one go. If you run into a room with a bunch of eyes shooting at you, hitting one with a rocket is usually enough to shut all of them up at once. It has a strong ammo capacity, so you don't have to worry that much about running out of ammo, although you need to be careful about shooting it close to you. If you hit yourself, it will usually take a substantial chunk of your health with it. Next up is the Railgun, which is a single-shot rifle with bullet penetration. It will one-hit any basic enemy and can take multiple out in one go. It is also the best weapon for taking out Hydras, usually in about 5 to 6 hits. Finally, we have the Devastator, which is unlocked dead last. Its specialty is indiscriminately wrecking face. Firing this gun into a small room will clear it with ease, and will take out a large portion of even some of the larger battles. Its obscene power is balanced by its ammo cost, requiring 15 ammo per shot, which gives you maybe 3 hits at maximum ammo. Overall, I think the weapon balancing is well done. There's no single weapon that is clearly better than every other one, and each one is better in certain situations than others. In a time where it seems like weapon choices are practically useless in most games, it's nice to see a game that makes you choose your weapons more carefully. Although I feel like the Hyper Blaster is too underpowered to make it an acceptable choice, because the double shotgun and the railgun will beat it out at their respective effective ranges. It's not horrible, but I didn't find myself using it a lot. Also, the rocket launcher's ammo capacity is a little too big, and it makes it easy for players to use it as a crutch in larger rooms. I get that it's designed to take out large groups of people, but I feel like the game would have been a lot more challenging if it was limited so that you had to pick your shots carefully and deal with the rest of the enemies in your own way. That way players would be more aware of exploding barrels and how to use their map to the advantage, instead of clearing rooms with 10 rockets. The other thing I have to point out is the level design. Gorescript has some of the best designed levels that I've seen recently. They flow nicely and are complex in such a way that getting lost is a possibility if you don't pay too much attention to your surroundings, but they're not a headache to get through. Plus, they contribute to the difficulty of the game. There's hidden passages with power-ups and enemies. There's blind corners that allow enemies to take you by surprise. There's a variance in height within every room that keeps you on your toes. There's different types of rooms that make you change up your playstyle. Plus, there's just a bunch of cool things that these maps do that are really interesting. For example, in level 7, you have to fight these Hydras and walk along these high, thin walls to get through the map. If you fall down, there's some enemies guarding teleportation pads that will take you back to the start of the room. Sometimes. Some of them will take you to power-ups and act as shortcuts to get you across the map a little bit faster. Most people would probably skip all of them after using the first one, but the game rewards you for looking around. There are a lot of points within this game, especially with the reveal of the arena map, where I saw something a level did and went, wow, this is actually pretty cool. Within the first playthrough, it's difficult to get around, but the way the maps are built, it makes it so that players benefit by running through the maps again and again, and aren't annoying to get through except for maybe like Causeway. Also, while the maps are designed well, they're not very decorated and look sort of bland. I give it a pass for being such a small game, but with the proper resources, the developer could have themed the levels better to make them stand out. I think the thing that stands out the most about Gorescript is how they take this solid feature and combine it with some creativity to change the way difficulty is handed out by the game. Usually difficulty is created by throwing in a lot of enemies that do and take a lot of damage. Sometimes it feels like the developers just keep plopping down more and more enemies until it gets too hard to get through a level. Most of the time this results in levels that are just absolute pains to get through because it seems like you have to work forever to get through a level. Gorescript doesn't do that, which I really appreciate. The majority of Gorescript's difficulty comes by the way they build their maps, position enemies, and force you to make smart choices to get through a level and keep you on your toes. Sometimes you'll zip down a seemingly empty hallway and then you turn a corner and end up right in front of a nom, which makes you think about what gun you carry around in certain areas because you never know what's going to be around that corner. Sometimes you'll be walking down a passage and walls will open up with a few enemies to fight, which really messes with your sense of trust with this game. There's events that trigger enemies to come out, which cuts down on the boredom of just simply walking from one side of the map to the other once unlocking something. Also, the maps do a really good job of hiding things. For example, in the level Slaughter, there's a room that acts like it's kind of a maze and would be extremely hard to do without anti-gravity boots. If you're not careful, it looks like the room's basically pointless, but the red key for that level is actually hidden within the maze. This change in approach to difficulty keeps this game from being a chore to play and replay. There's a handful of games that I won't play through again because certain parts within them are almost impossible to beat. I like it when a level takes a couple attempts to beat, but I can't stand it when random levels decide to beat you down for basically no reason. I played through Gorescript on normal difficulty, and I don't think there's really a level that I wouldn't mind playing again, except for the final boss because it's a boring fight to be honest, and not to really spoil anything. In all, I call Gorescript a really good game, but not an extremely excellent one. The game is well built and plays well, but it lacks a distinction to bring it to that next tier. I'm singing out a lot of praise for this game in this review, but there's just nothing about it that makes it really stand out. There's no story or any sort of uniting feature between the levels. They're good on their own, but there's nothing that makes them flow together. The levels are also well built, but don't look amazing. The rooms are just all gray walls with different heights and features, and lack any sort of character. I would have liked to see them become more functional and look like the actual compartments of a spaceship, instead of like a framework. If Gorescript put a stronger focus on immersion, this game would have been a spectacular game. Throwing a bit of lore, decoration, and character into this game would have probably netted it a strong following. Even the games that it is modeled after have those, and they contributed to their greatness. Overall, Gorescript is a really good game with an extremely solid core. Even without the added garnish, this game is extremely fun to play, and I can see where people might find a desire to top the leaderboards and speedrun this game. For a $10 game on Steam, I think it has a quality that makes it stand out a bit. However, I feel that the simplicity holds it back from capturing an audience outside of its niche. If you want to play a short first-person shooter modeled after the classics, then this game is for you. However, if you're looking for an outstanding experience, I don't think you're going to be happy with this game. Well, that does it for this review. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.